In my mind, I'm like, what does the CIA do?
The military and intelligence came to him and said, we got to invade Cuba. And he said, well, I don't like what Castro's doing down there, but it's not the United States' job to dictate what kind of governments other countries have.
Hey, I got a question for you. Are you feeling buried under credit card bills, personal loans, or medical debt? Is it like your money is working harder for the lenders than it is for you? But let me tell you something, it don't have to be that way. And that's where PDS Debt comes in. PDS Debt goes beyond just managing your debt. They take the time to understand your unique financial situations and create a personalized plan that actually works for you. No cookie cutter solution, just a clear path to financial freedom. And the best part is there's no minimum credit score required. Whether your credit is bad or fair, PDS Debt is here to help you save money, to pay off your debt faster, and to start building your savings. I wish PDS Debt was around when I was struggling with debt. If you're feeling stuck, don't wait. Every single day that you wait is costing you money. Take control today by visiting pdsdebt.com/Tatum to complete your free debt assessment, and it only takes about 30 seconds. That's pdsdebt.com/Tatum, your first step towards financial freedom. All right, ladies and gentlemen, RFK Files. Now, there is not a lot of information necessarily coming out. I mean, I said RFK, JFK Files. I'm sorry. I'm looking at RFK and I'm thinking of RFK. But the JFK Files, there's not a lot that's been disseminated because there's a lot of documents to go through. And I think we were going to have to parse through those documents over a period of time before we get anything substantive. Okay. So, but I do want you guys to know that there is some skepticism from RFK about what could have possibly happened to his uncle. There's some people that believe that the CIA did it. I think a lot of people believe the CIA did it. I need to read all the files to be unequivocally factual about that. But according to some of our research, there was tension between JFK and CIA Director Allen Dulles, and their conflict came over the Bay of Pigs operation, which the CIA, partook in.
Cuba had been America's summer playground, and America didn't like seeing a communist regime being set up in its own backyard. So the US immediately began training up Cuban exiles to invade Cuba and overthrow Castro. However, as the day of the operation came closer, Kennedy wanted to conceal any US involvement in the plan. So he massively scaled back American air support, and as a result, the Bay of Pigs invasion was a humiliating defeat for America.
So let me just go with this. I'm gonna play RFK's statement, and then I'm gonna come back to these facts here. Roll the clip.
My uncle, John Kennedy, did that. He refused to go to war. So he was surrounded by military-industrial complex, and he learned very early and an intelligence apparatus that he realized early on that the purpose of the CIA and the intelligence apparatus was to create a constant pipeline of new wars for the military-industrial complex. 3 days before he took the oath of office, Eisenhower, who was the outgoing president, gave what is probably the most important speech in American history, which was, where he warned against the military-industrial complex. I was at my uncle's inauguration. I was in Washington that day as a 6-year-old boy, and I was sitting on the stands behind him, in front of him during his inauguration. And he understood that. And 2 months later, the military and intelligence came to him and said, we got to invade Cuba. And he was like, I'm not going to Cuba, and I'm not going to let the military. And they said, well, we got all these Cubans trained, and they're going to go attack Castro. And he said, well, we can't, the U.S. government can't be doing that. We can't be attacking. I don't like what Castro's doing down there, but it's not the United States' job to dictate what kind of governments other countries have. And they said, well, as soon as they land, there's going to be a big revolution. Everybody's going to rise up and they're going to overthrow Castro. And he said, well, you can't use the U.S. military. And they ended up bringing those guys over with United Fruit boats. And in the middle of it, the night, they came to him and said, they're getting wiped out on the beach and you need to send in the military and invade. And he said, we're not going to do it. He stepped out of that meeting and he realized they had been lying to him and trying to trick him. And he said, I want to take the CIA and it into 1,000 pieces and scatter it to them. And then, for the next 1,000 days of his presidency, he was at war with his military and intelligence apparatus. They tried to get him to go into Laos. He said no. They tried to get him to go into Vietnam with combat troops. They said that we need 250,000 combat troops. He refused. Everybody around him wanted him to go into Vietnam. He sent 16,000 military advisors. That's fewer people than he sent to get James Meredith into Ole Miss in Jackson, Mississippi, to get one black man into school. He sent fewer to Vietnam. They weren't allowed to fight. Many of them did. They both violated the rules of engagement. In October of 1963, he heard some of his Green Berets had been killed over there. And he said, I want a casualty list from Vietnam. And his aide came to him and said, 75 Americans have died. He said, that's too many. And he signed that day a national security order ordering all troops out of Vietnam, U.S. troops. The first 1,000 over the next month, and then the rest by the beginning of 1965. And then a month later, he was killed.
All right, so that's a little bit of information. Let me just be in full transparency. I need to study this a little bit deeper. I'm not going to say my staff prepared me very well, but to understand the true conflict here, I need to study this a little bit more. It wouldn't surprise me that the CIA would take out somebody like JFK. It wouldn't surprise me that the CIA would take out somebody like Martin Luther King. The question is, once we get through all of these files and you know, get to the bare bones of what's really going on. Because I'm one of those people that do not want to be a conspiracy theorist. I know there's people that are saying Israel has something to do with it. There's people that are saying the CIA has something to do with it. Obviously, RFK believes that the CIA killed him because he wasn't operating under the military-industrial complex and they couldn't control him, and they wanted to do their bidding across the world and create world power and control and all this old crazy stuff, and he was against it. So it would make sense for them to kill him, and then the next person in will just do everything they want them to do. I don't understand how the CIA works, right? I'm just being honest. Like, I think most Americans don't understand. I remember when I first thought about the CIA, and this is something I'm going to study. In my mind, I'm like, what does the CIA actually do? And it's this theology that the CIA is running its own rogue operations to where they could have combatants or people who are militarized that can actually kill American citizens, go across other countries and kill people and start wars and do all kind of stuff. And then it posed a question in my mind, well, how is the CIA a part of the executive branch? Which I think that they are. But allegedly not controlled by the executive branch, meaning that they operate under their own volition, meaning that the president has no say in it and don't know what they're doing. That's what I'm under the impression that that's what it is. How does that happen? And how has it been happening so far? How does the CIA how does the government kill somebody in the government and the government not know about it? This is why I'm saying this. I'm questioning, how does this really work? Because Donald Trump was in office for 4 years. How did, in 4 years of Donald Trump being in office in 2016, that we don't have any valid information about how the CIA was killing our own people? And we just now going to release it now, but there's no unequivocal statements that that's what it is and that we have unequivocal evidence. So it's very confusing to me. I got to do some deep dive and research or bring somebody on that understands this a lot more than me. But I'm just as curious as some of you guys about this.
For more than 60 years, John F. Kennedy's assassination has sparked intrigue, speculation, and plenty of conspiracy theories.
I was a fifth grader at the time.
President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
It's News Minnesota District Federal Judge John Thunheim says he first heard from his teacher.
I remember her saying that the president was shot. And then we really just sat there in silence.
In the 1990s, Thunheim served as former President Bill Clinton's chair of the Assassination Records Review Board. Thunheim had authority to review all records and decide what should be released related to Kennedy's assassination.
We released nearly everything. There were some redactions.
Thunheim says there are just under 4,000 documents with redactions at the National Archives. Most redactions were related to protecting methods of intelligence gathering. While Thunheim says more records have been uncovered since the 90s, in addition to 14,000 more recently found by the FBI, he says don't expect anything earth-shattering.
Anyone expecting that there's going to be a complete answer to what happened, evidence of a conspiracy, for example, I think people will be disappointed.
Thunheim says government transparency is important to regain trust, ever since information about JFK's death was initially hidden.
Both President Trump and President Biden said they were going to release everything. This information does need to be released, and released right away.
Is it according to the rumors that I've heard about the CIA, is it impossible for the CIA to do this? No, I don't think it's impossible. I think that they could be killing people in America. But it's crazy that the government don't understand what they're doing. There's no evidence that they're doing it, and there's nobody to have oversight of what the CIA is doing. That's the perplexing, bizarre part of me. And the JFK situation, and there are 63 files that have been released thus far, 63,000 files that have been released thus far. Some people say there's millions of pages of documents. So as they come out, I'm going to try to do my due diligence to be more informed about this, or have a guest on that knows more about this than I do. Because many of you guys probably know I haven't been in politics for an incredible long time. And some of this stuff is still confusing as heck to me. And what I don't want to do is follow people because they say it, and I'm just going to jump on the bandwagon and say stuff that may not even be true. I don't ever want to be that person. Push your conspiracy theories because all the conservatives say it's conspiracy. I'm like, no, let me read it for myself. Let me be really truly informed. Let me get some experts that are on this topic on both sides to figure out what really happened. But it's very interesting, the intertwining personnel that's involved in this JFK situation and others that we have seen that have gone on in our country. Because how do we not know the CIA wasn't responsible for trying to kill Donald Trump? That could be the case. I don't know. But how do we not have a system in place that we should always know? Now that we're in office and the CIA is under the executive branch, why do we not have a policy position in place where Donald Trump knows and is transparent everything the CIA is doing? Every person that works for the CIA, every personnel, Donald Trump knows them. Not saying know them personally, but he knows them and there's a number, he knows where they're traveling. Then how can the CIA overthrow its own government?